What if AVALUGG was in Gen 1 OU? Now, ironically enough, I'm pretty sure I've been recommended Hisuian AVALUGG more than Colossian AVALUGG or regular AVALUGG, but I decided to go with regular AVALUGG instead, because not only do I think it would be more interesting, but hot take, I think it would be better. Which I know sounds weird, because Hisuian AVALUGG has the rock typing, which gives it that very valuable normal resistance. But at the same time, it also makes it weak to ground, which doesn't matter too much with, how high its defense is, although it does give Tauros another option against you. But way more importantly, it gives you a weakness to water. And water is already a problem for you because of how low your special is. So, you can disagree with me if you want, but I feel like regular AVALUGG would be better. And luckily, regular AVALUGG is very interesting to go over, because unlike in other generations, Pure Ice isn't that bad of a defensive typing in Gen 1. So AVALUGG's entire, design, where it's supposed to be this big tanky wall, it can actually do that in Gen 1. Not to mention, even though it has a little special, being a pure ice type is probably one of the better types you can be. Especially, just for resisting Blizzard. And speaking of Blizzard, even though you have a little special, you're definitely glad you have Stab Blizzard at least. Not only can that help you hit certain things super effectively like Executor, which won't do a lot, but it'll be decent chip. But also just in general, if there was any stab move like you wanted to have, it would probably be Blizzard. Like, I don't think you would rather be like an electric type or anything. Maybe Psychic, but then we're just going over a completely different Pokemon, not a literal walking iceberg. So, outside of its little special, which is, like around Rhydon's level, which is already pretty like, oh no, its speed is somehow even worse. Which, just to go over how bad 28 speed is, both Snorlax and Slowbro are 30. So there was no doubt that you were definitely the slowest Pokemon in the format. But it doesn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things, just because of just how physically tanky you are. And in some ways, at the very least, it's good knowing that AVALUGG truly has nothing to worry about with paralysis, other than losing a free turn every once in a while. So overall, it could be worse. I would say that AVALUGG stats are really good. And like I just said, it basically has, Rhydon special. And Rhydon's still very good because of how tanky it is, and because it can hit hard. And while 117 attack isn't it's not that it's bad, but you definitely wish you had Stab. But luckily, AVALUGG does have some, decent, moves to use. Speaking of which, well, let's look into them. Obviously, he has a Blizzard, and it's always a mainstay. I'd argue Earthquake would also be as well, since it's probably your most consistent attacking move. And I think you'd rather have that over, let's say, Double Edge. Mostly so that you can hit Gengar with just anything. Because outside of a weak Blizzard or normal moves, you only have Earthquake, which means it's your only real way of actually doing damage to Gengar. Although the matchup is still pretty bad either way. Or, it's more like a Coco either way, honestly. Ice Beam is probably not worth it. And Recover. This is what separates AVALUGG from the other ice types in OU, such as Cloyster, Jinx, or Articuno. The fact that it has reliable recovery. Honestly, I would even argue that AVALUGG would struggle in OU if it weren't for Recover. But now that it can soak up a lot of hits, and even with some special hits, it can even heal from those, that gives AVALUGG insane amount of longevity, which it desperately needs. So that alone, already makes you feel like he would probably be fine in OU, maybe even great. You luckily do not have to worry about rest, which that's good. You technically have Rock Slide, but it's just never worth it. Same thing with Surf. I highly doubt Surf is an Oko and Rhydon. And even if it was, you have plenty of better moves you could be using. Barrier is funny, but obviously not needed. And I don't think it works Light Screen. But if it did, that would be funny. It obviously works Hyper Beam. Obviously. Sorry, I can't talk today. And outside of that, there is one other move that I do think is worth going into. And it's not Skull Bash, but Sharpen. Which, I know that's weird, but hear me out here. Like, Hyper Beam is, good damage. It gives you more, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it matters that much. Especially since for some Pokemon, like, let's say you're using, like, Earthquake against Chansey. Since Chansey's faster than you, it can always just go for a Soft Boil. So you can't just, like, kill it with, Hyper Beam afterwards. And while you wish you had Sword Stance, you really wish you had Sword Stance, Sharpen isn't that bad. Since you have such high defense, and you have, Revival Recovery, you're unironically going to get a lot of free turns. So, using Sharpen every once in a while, or taking advantage of a sleeping or frozen Pokemon, it can happen. And I mean, I feel like at the very least, using Sharpen will be better than, like having, like, 2, like, physical moves where it doesn't really do that much for you. I feel like this moveset here is just all that you need. You have a good stab option, and just good for, hitting stuff that, hitting stuff that might be a threat to you, and maybe getting lucky with a freeze. And then when you're able to, just boost your attack, and then just slowly over time, you're just hitting everything for an insane amount of damage. Obviously, you can change some stuff. You can add, like, Double Edge or Hyper Beam if you want. Or you can just be crazy and get rid of, like, Blizzard or something. But overall, I think this moveset is great. And I personally wouldn't change much, about it. Other than, like, really, really wishing the AVALUGG had Body Slam. Because holy crap, it would benefit so much. At the very least, though, it can benefit from its teammates paralyzing stuff for it. But even then, I'm pretty sure there are some Pokemon that would still outspeed it, which is unfortunate. You also really wish that, Rock Polish existed in Gen 1. Because then it can just use an agility and won't have to worry about speed as much. But oh well. Also, just to make sure, I'm pretty sure it does have Amnesia. Yeah, it doesn't. That's also something that you kind of wish you had, but oh well. We'll just get into the replays. Now, with just your standard Tauros set, Tauros has, like, no real way of hurting you. Like, that's how much a critical Body Slam does. Like, you need a critical Body Slam just to 3-hit KO AVALUGG. So, this is exactly what I mean when I say you could probably just go for Sharpen. And, like, there's nothing they can really do. You'd have a lot of free turns. So, like, you can still disagree with me if you want. Because, like, obviously, like, even if you go for Sharpen, they can just switch into, like, a Sweep Setter or a Special Attacker, which would probably waste your time. So, I could see it going either way. Speaking of, it's Tauros. Obviously, if AVALUGG's in the format, you're just gonna have some Tauros that's a spec in the Fire Blast. And yes, a critical does Oko. So, I kind of wanted to put Tauros in a good matchup, but it's Tauros. You gotta put it in, it could go either way. It's actually very rare for any Pokemon to have a good matchup against Tauros. I'm not even sure if I've had anything that has a great matchup. I don't remember. Also, for Snorlax, I feel like this, like, one here also is just a good example of just, why I feel like Sharpen could be legitimately good. Because without Sharpen, Reflect Wax just completely walls you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do. Even with your longevity, with, Recover. But with, Sharpen, you can eventually just, like, overpower it. And I wish there was more I can say, but I feel like I've already made my point, and you can just see here. where AVALUGG just gets a lot of free turns in, it can heal, and because of this AVALUGG being paralyzed, it also means it's not scared of sleep. Now granted, Executor and Jinx and probably Gengar all hit you pretty hard anyways, but this AVALUGG also has a lot of attack in of itself, so like, Jinx, Alakazam, they can't really OHKO it, and AVALUGG can just one-shot them, so it just becomes like a huge threat all around. I'm not sure if AVALUGG would be like a late game cleaner when most of the team is paralyzed, or if it would mostly be used for just like the way, you know, like just a defensive Pokemon, as you would expect. Don't know, but either way, I really am just struggling. The footage is really on fast right now, and okay, thank God. Was this gonna the Chansey replay? That was awkward. And unlike Snorlax, with Volt Beam Chansey exactly, it's probably or actually, no, it doesn't matter if it's like Thunderbolt or Seismic Toss. Either way, it's still a 4-hit KO. Still a little annoying, but at the same time, AVALUGG can just, you know, outstall with Recover, and then it can just do a lot of damage with, you know, strong physical moves, and it can probably get a Sharpen or two. So Hyper Beam probably wasn't needed, or for that damage range, it probably was. But in general, you could probably just like eventually get off 2, you know, Sharpens, and then you just finish off with Earthquake. With Alakazam, a crit murders you, and a non-crit does half of your damage, which unfortunately will become a habit with a lot of different special attackers, which doesn't really, it probably doesn't surprise you, but it really does kind of make AVALUGG just Rhydon but colder, and it doesn't hit as hard, but it's still really good, because at least unlike Rhydon, it has something it can do especially with its Stab Blizzard. But I still feel like, even though I feel like AVALUGG would be good, and even if what's it called, it wasn't actually in OU but BL or underuse, it would still have like a niche in OU. There's no doubt about it. And even with, like, you know, sleep and so much stuff being faster than it, or literally everything being faster than it, I still feel like you can find opportunities to take AVALUGG in. Although, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I think AVALUGG is doing as good as I expected or underperforming. And I don't know how good it would do if it was in lower tiers. Are you guys let me know what you think? If AVALUGG ends up in lower tiers in the first place? I don't have much to say about that Jolteon replay. It's just, you know, both can basically two-shot each other. It just depends on who's luckier, and it'll probably be Jolteon. And then with Rhydon, even though Rhydon's faster, AVALUGG is just insanely physically bulky. So, Rockslide just jack. And in Gen 1, Rockslide didn't have, you know, the ability to flinch Pokemon. Which, unfortunate for Rhydon. But, you know, good for AVALUGG. I actually wonder if Rhydon and AVALUGG would be used on the same team. I'd imagine not, because then you just have a huge weakness towards special stuff. As you see here. Like, that's not even, like, you know, like a super effective move. But Surf already does so much damage. So, AVALUGG has, like, no opportunities to actually, you know, like, set up and fight against Army. So, we only have one Raz replay left. As usual, we always end with Zapdos. And even though it's an Ice type, Zapdos just 2-hit KOs. So, unless you get a freeze, like there, it's usually like a matchup that Zapdos can just take. But then again, like, Wizard being a 3-hit KO, for Pokemon with 44 special, not that bad. Not that bad, honestly. And also, here's an example where you can just set up a million, you know, Sharpens. It definitely takes time. Like, it's definitely not like Sword Stands where just a single one can, like, you know, help you just with a lot of matchups. But if you can go for it, especially if you don't know what they're going to send in, because again, you don't have Body Slam. It's not, and while Earthquake, it can do some damage. Like a lot of Pokemon are either immune to it or can just heal it off. So I still feel like Sharpen would be better, but whatever. Sorry for repeating myself so much. Here's the tier list. I feel like there isn't any Pokemon in the game where AVALUGG has a great matchup against. Although, I still feel like it's still pretty good. Sort of like how, Snorlax isn't like a hard counter to everything, but it can still take on everything. Overall, though, I think AVALUGG would be good. I don't know if it would be OU. I think it doesn't really matter either way, though, since it definitely would have a place in OU in the viability rankings. But you can let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank y'all for watching. Join the Discord server. With each and every upload I do, we get closer to the first season of the Generation Jumble. And that's about it. This is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.